I'll tell you the ones that I'm paying attention to, but they're unconventional. So one of them is Scandinavia, the Baltics, basically, and skirmishes that happen between the Russians and NATO, or the Russians and the West off of Norway, in the Baltic Sea, Belarus, this whole kind of part of the world that we haven't really thought about much since, the last World War, is actually just rampant with submarines chasing each other around. A lot of, quote, research vessels that are really military vessels. There are lots of internet cables up in that part of the world, and the Russians are always trying to dredge them up so they break the cable. That's one part of the world, is the Baltic, Scandinavia. One part is the Arctic, and I think there's a huge geopolitical race going on right now for the Arctic. The Chinese have developed the fastest icebreakers in the world. They can now get from Dalian to Rotterdam, which is the Northern Belt and Road, even though it's a shipping lane. So it's part of the belt, as it were. They've able to get there. I can't remember, last time I looked, it was something like 28 days. But Rotterdam has become like the coolest, most happening city in Western Europe, because so much money has gone into it as the final port of the Chinese Belt and Road strategy. And that is important for a whole bunch of reasons, because the Russians are basically going, wait, this is ours. We control this. And then the Chinese just pass them at such speed. They're like, did I hear someone say something? You literally can't defend it. And this part of the world has a lot of advantages from a geopolitical point of view. One, huge source of protein. And everyone says, oh, I'm not fishing in the Arctic. I'm not trawling for protein in the Arctic, but I kind of think they are. So there's a huge environmental issue associated with that as well. But also, we live in a world where if IBM is right and information is doubling every 12 hours, and add to that supercomputers and quantum computers, right, which is the new geopolitical space race. That's where all the new defense spending is going, is basically code breaking. Who has the fastest computers that can break the code faster, whether it's a nuclear code or a genetic code or a bank code, like any kind of code. So to do all that, you need cold, right? Otherwise, you got to literally air condition all these computers. So where do you start to put data spaces? The Arctic. And so we're seeing a lot of, underground caves, deep underground military bases, all being constructed by the Russians, by the Americans, because you're putting computer systems in there. And that'll be the new backbone of the data side of geopolitics. The backbone of it will be in the very cold places. Some of that's being put into the deep underwater spaces, open ocean, again, because it's cold. And that's what you need for fast and vast data processing. The other places I'm watching, I keep an eye on what happens between India and China. I think that's a very volatile, tricky border. And we see lots of incidents occurring. So far, the two sides manage it, but that has the capacity to flare into something bigger. Every once in a while, it starts to, as the Chinese move into places like, again, Bhutan, Nepal. And why is the Himalayas important? It's important because the Chinese are now focused on diverting the water supply, because they want to turn the west of China into California, which can only be done if you irrigate it. And they need to grow more food. So that's the solution. But it also means potentially depriving 60, 80 million people of their water supply. So are we going to see a skirmish or a clash over water from the Himalayas? Answer, probably. This is a right place for that kind of event. If I have to pick a physical space as well, it's underwater. And huge investments going into submarines. because they're invisible. They're wonderful because you can do all kinds of things and the public never knows about it. So China's real focus for their blue water navy hasn't been the aircraft carriers that get so much attention, but rather the submarine capability. And then that's like the old Cold War. It's like World War I and World War II. There's all this submarine activity that you never hear about, but it's happening. So those are some of the things that I'm watching. Anything to do with critical infrastructure that suddenly doesn't work, the Colonial Pipeline. There are those who say, of course, that's not geopolitics. No nation would get involved in that. But I know
Proxy geopolitics.
I think that, again, we're in a data space where digital control over remote resources and assets is an everyday thing. Huge divisions of the American government, the Russian government, the Chinese government devoted to that. And so you shouldn't be too surprised to see sometimes infrastructure just suddenly stops working for a while.